Adam and Andrew Gray. We're the writer, director, editor, cinematographer of Fly Colt Fly, Legend of the Barefoot Bandit, which is a feature-length documentary playing at TIFF Next Wave on Sunday.
Which is pretty exciting. I saw the movie. This kid totally fascinated me when he was in the news to begin with. Was that your starting point for telling this story?
Yeah, it was. We heard about this story at about the point where he had stolen his third plane and crashed it in Granite Falls, Washington, and there was a big manhunt. And I came across this story because we were writing a script about Billy the Kid, and they were comparing him to Billy the Kid, so that's how we heard about him. And I immediately sent it to Drew, and we were fascinated by it. And so it was neat because at that point there was so much backstory. You know, he was maybe 17 at that time, and there was media following him since about the time he was 14 or 13 or something. And then it kept evolving. You know, there was crazy incident after crazy incident where they just couldn't catch him, and it was just wild. So as we started pitching it while he was still on the run. And so we had lots of great updates to keep giving to financiers. Like, you know, he's just stolen a car. He's now in Nebraska. He's his way across. He's in the Bahamas.
Did you find momentum was building as Colton was on the chase for your film as well?
Yes, it built from a Seattle story where it was, you know, Washington State. And then, you know, as I think it was about the time he stole his fourth airplane, he flew that airplane through the Vancouver Olympics no-fly zone during the opening ceremony. He landed the plane on Orcas Island, and then he burgled a all-natural grocery store, you know, like an organic grocery store, and then he left 39 chalk bare footprints across the floor with the word "see ya." And that sort of made it, you know, that got national attention.
This was the thing that was so fascinating to me, and I'd never really seen this until I'd seen Fly Colt Fly, which was the sense of retribution and restitution that this young man, like when you interviewed one of his, you know, his early compadres in his crime spree, and he said, we would go on these joyrides with these vehicles, and we'd bring them back, we'd park them in the same spot, we'd clean them up, we'd gas up, you know, it was like they'd have their fun. And at the end, I'm not going to say kind of what happens, you know, but when the title card's at the end, there's a real sense that Colton really has done things that are criminal, but he kind of has done it in a friendly way. It seems a little Canadian in a way, you know. It's like he's never done anything. He didn't. At the end of it, you think, well, he didn't kill anybody. He didn't harm anybody. He's, you know, maybe smashed in a few safety boxes, but, you know. So tell me about that kind of sense of did you kind of uncover that aspect of him?
Well, I mean, there was certainly he was still is a very sympathetic character. People generally like him. When people meet him, they're like, he's such a nice guy. He's very smart. He's well-spoken, and he's had a tough background. So there's definitely, and that's why he's a folk hero. That's why the teenagers across the world have, 100,000 fans on Facebook. But then there's the other side of, if he broke into your store and took, you know, your money, or he crashed your, you know, $750,000 airplane in a swamp, you know, you're a little more angry about it. Probably don't appreciate people like us making movies. But, you know, the story, it's like, you know, The Godfather. Should The Godfather have not been made because it's about a criminal? Yeah, we like criminal movies.
Do you find that, you know, you kind of try to tread both sides of that conversation?
It's an action documentary, and that's why we were interested in it. But it's also a mystery.
Yeah.
But not a mystery that anyone can really solve. It was more like a portrait of the media reaction to the story. in a way.
Yeah. Well, we tried to make it about the legend, because Colton hasn't spoken to anybody, so nobody really knows. So, you get these little pieces of information through his actions and stuff, and how people perceived him.
I'm going to ask you, not as filmmakers, but as highly informed individuals, do you feel like Colton wanted to get caught when he was arrested?
I think he did. I mean, we don't know, but from what we'd heard, we went to the Bahamas at the same time of year he was there in July, and it is brutal. Like, it is really, really hot, and he was hiding out on an island in the bush for days with only water or Gatorades or Snickers bars that he could manage to steal from little gas stations. And some of the guys that saw him right near the end who tried to capture him said that he was really thin, he was covered in cuts and bruises, and he was covered in mosquito bites. The mosquitoes there are horrible. So I think he came into Bahamas maybe thinking it was going to be like the tropical paradise that we see on television, but it became like a sweltering hell. And so I think maybe he'd had enough, and he seemed to be taunting people to chase him and stuff near the end. But I mean, for someone who wants to get caught, I won't give away the climax of the film, but he sure gives them a hell of a run for their money. I mean, it's like a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
How he just, the speedboat chases and swimming with the sharks, and it's pretty crazy.
I was really gripped. I mean, I wanted to talk to you about the aspect of using kind of graphic novel animation to bring the story together. It wasn't like one of these, the only way you kind of did these like reconstructions of those times as outside of the animation is basically watching some young kid run away from the camera constantly, which gives you a sense of the speed and the, keeping up the pace. But for the other stuff, it was all this kind of really cool graphic novel animation. So tell me about bringing that in and why you decided to do it that way.
Well, I think the voice of it was the imagination of people at home following the story. I mean, there's the truth, which is very complicated and difficult to describe even in a lengthy feature film. But in people's minds, it was just car chase after stolen plane crash, and we wanted to convey that sort of energy in the animations, and we could go a little beyond reality and try to capture the essence of what was so intriguing for people. Plus, it's a lot cheaper to animate a plane crash than film one.
Yes, but what I love it though is when you have these recreations that are not animated, they quite often look like it. I don't know. There's a lot of shaking of the camera, and there's like, images of the dashboard, and it just looks like super low budget. But what I liked about Fly, Colt, Fly was that you managed to make it high budget. You could show him his first flight, which was incredibly, intense and exciting and terrifying. So I felt like you made it a lot bigger budget by using the animation. So smart one, chaps.
Yeah. I should say that a guy named Sam Chow from Style 5 Animation was the director of animation, and he's a massively talented guy who worked really hard to work together with us on that.
Yeah, that looks great. One of the things I loved about Colton was that he was very smart. Which is surprising considering how he was raised and that he wasn't kind of given much direction in life. But he used a lot of things that teenagers have that you don't consider as assets. He actually used them as assets, like his agility and his ability to kind of, even though he's like 6'5" or something, blend in with, groups of people and people who were very sympathetic towards him, and his sense of no fear. You know, like you always think, you know, teenagers think they're so invincible. And he literally did, to the point where he would fly planes, you know, and think, well, if I'll probably get out of it. You know what I mean? I'll probably survive it, you know. So did you kind of see that? Like it wasn't even so much a street smarts or an intellectual smarts. There was some kind of in between. It was like a hybrid. And whatever assets he had that you wouldn't think, he somehow brought to this experience that he was having. Did you come across that? Did you find instances of that quite a bit?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think he brought a lot of skills to the table when he was you know, a very gifted survivalist. Like he grew up in the woods, and he could literally, you know, when we first started the story, we didn't believe and even when we went into the woods, which was really dense and covered in prickles and stuff, like it would rip your legs apart, but he was literally running through the woods in bare feet. And, you know, at such a speed that nobody could catch him. Wow. And he was very good with computers. You know, he knew how to, you know, use people's credit cards and buy things online. But I also think, you know, that teenage sense of immortality was definitely a factor, that he wanted to make his life, you know, in some way a movie. And he did. I mean, it was just, you know, you couldn't believe what this kid was doing. It was, you know, adrenaline junkie / almost suicidal. You know, the risks he was taking were not logical.
He wanted to fly.
Yeah.
And he was going to do whatever it took to do that, other than go to school and learn and pilot science.
That was his plan B, it sounds like. Tell me about the TIFF Next Wave Film Festival. Is this the first time you've done TIFF Next Wave?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Are you excited to see what the feedback is from like a younger audience?
Yeah, we're really excited. Like when we heard about the festival and were invited to come, we thought, well, this is perfect. We get to sit in a movie theater with a bunch of teenagers who really, you know, I think everyone can enjoy this film, but I think particularly teenagers will be captivated by Colton's story. So for us, it's really exciting to be showing it to this group of people. And the whole festival is, we think, just a great idea that they're bringing all the teenagers in. And I think there's a lot of free movies and events and film competitions and all sorts of stuff to get kids excited about the movies and get an early start if they want a career. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about the festival is it seems very entertainment-oriented, which sounds weird to say when you're talking about a film festival, but a lot of festivals, especially these days, are very social issue-oriented, and that's fine. Adam and I like to make entertaining films. And
I'm against entertainment.
What do you think Colton will be when he grows up?
An aeronautical engineer.
Like an
airplane design company.
Like a quiet life kind of guy after this point?
I don't know. Like, you know, I have mixed, you know, because, well, right now he's being mentored by an aeronautical engineer from Boeing aircrafts, and he says he wants to be an aeronautical engineer. So, you know, hopefully that's what's going to happen. At the time when he got arrested, and he's always ducking his head, you know, when the cameras are, and, you know, at the time I thought, you know, he thinks maybe he'll be able to make a break for it. And he doesn't want a clear shot of his face, but, you know, what his real intentions are, I don't know. He certainly says that he's going to fly straight.
I think he's matured a lot over the last few years.
Prison will do that.
As much as I would love to end it on that comment. I'm going to ask you, chaps, how audiences can connect with the film.
You know, if you go on to Facebook, Fly Colt Fly, we are on Facebook and Twitter. Fly Colt Fly, and we have an elaborate website that's up now, but there's a lot more coming. There's a comic book for that's the prelude to the movie, and that's flycoltflymovie.com. And we have a screening for a week at the Royal Cinema in Toronto.
Nice. When is that? Do you know?
Start the 21st to the 27th. It'll be playing at the Royal.
This February?
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the very prestigious Belleville Documentary Festival, which
our hometown.
Yeah,
will be released across the country. We don't have our exact dates for that, but through Twitter, Facebook, we'll release them.
The Movie Network,
Movie
Central.
Central, starting sometime in the summer.
Nice.
Which they were our broadcasters on this. They've been great.
So you've got a theatrical release coming up. You're doing festivals, and you're heading to TV as well. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the way you like it for a film, ideally, wouldn't it?
It's better than just showing it to your friends in the living room.
Sometimes that happens in Canada, so you've got the better alternative. So, well, best of luck, gentlemen. Keep us in the loop. We want to hear all about it. When you have events coming up around the country, or you're about to air on TV, let us know, and we'll tweet it out to our fans.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much.